Hi guys, POE New here. This is a guide for league starting with Lightning Tendrils. I league started with it in Crucible League and found its DPS absurdly high at an acceptable budget, and I enjoyed it a lot. Let's first see the core mechanism of this build and why the DPS is so high. So first, the high base DPS of the skill itself. Even before the Crucible League, the base DPS was already pretty high, and in Crucible League it received another 30% more base DPS buff. Second is its very unique mechanic where every third hit always crits. With this, we can all in that crit hit and use Marilyn's Fallacy Amulet to get the juicy 288% crit multi while totally ignore any investment into crit chance. We can also use Control Destruction Support Gem, which has less crit chance but higher damage boost. Third, the Phantasmal quality, which buffs the crit hit and make it hit even harder. It's not only a 50% more DPS boost, but also that Giga Hit can apply max shock effect and easily freeze even Uber bosses, which again guarantee the full time coverage of the Heat Shiver damage buff. Then of course the Call of the Brotherhood and Heat Shiver combo. As just mentioned, it freezes everything and have 100% Heat Shiver damage buff uptime. Lastly, the Elementalist gives the 60% increased AoE while mapping, and together with the Carcass Jack and Exploding Flask, the mapping is just zoom zoom. For the pros of this build, first is its high damage from Act 1 all the way to endgame. Second is its low budget available, and also it scales pretty well with more investment and it can reach 200 million DPS endgame. Lastly, it freezes everything that can be frozen, so it's a pretty safe playstyle. For the cons of this build, first it's not super tanky, especially while leveling where you need to stand close to the enemy. But thanks to the high DPS, it kills most mobs before they kill you. And also, it can be resolved by investing more into defense layer, such as using Determination to replace Breath, and also using Lightning Coil to mitigate the physical damage. And then after you have the Call of the Brotherhood, it freezes enemies and it really helps survivability. Second con is that this skill has not great monster coverage, so if you still like to league start with it, let's get into the leveling guide. In my leveling test run, I finished the campaign in 5 hours. I started using Lightning Tendrils from Act 1, and combined with Orb of Storm setup, the damage is just more than enough for the campaign. Even though my character levels was 5 levels lower than the area level almost all the time, I also died several times if not careful enough. So if you are also not skillful enough, you can just keep your character level close to the area level and invest a bit more into the defense. For the gems, there are a lot of blue gems, so try to look for gears with blue sockets and links. So start from Act 1, we get the following links. Lightning Tendrils linked with Infused Channeling and Added Lightning. Orb of Storm linked with Added Lightning. Frost Blink linked with Arcane Surge as our movement skill. And also we need Clarity to sustain our mana. For Clarity, it's enough to hold it at level somewhere between 3 and 6. Optionally, you can also use Body Swap. It's a movement skill that teleports you onto enemies or corpse with no cooldown. I used it when Frostblink is in cooldown to boost the traveling speed. Sometimes it's a little bit dangerous to teleport to the face of the monsters, so it's optional. In Act 2, for the Bandit definitely will help with Alira, because everything she provides just fits our build perfectly. And then for the Lightning Tendrils setup, we will add one more new support gem, which is Control Destruction. And for the Orb of Storm setup, we'll add 2 support gems, which is Elemental Focus and Control Destruction. And then we'll use Herald of Thunder, and then Wave of Conviction linked with Faster Cast to apply Exposure. Make sure to check its tooltip and make sure the lowest lightning damage is higher than the highest damage of other types. If not, grab the 40% physical, convert it to lightning for the lightning mastery on the skill tree. Optionally, you can also have Architect armor for more defense. In Act 3, we pick the Wrath as our main aura and conductivity. In Act 4, you can do your first lap and get the Elementalist Ascendancy. For the first Ascendancy node, there are two choices. So if you want more DPS, you can get Mastermind of Discord, which applies an extra minus 25% resistance for exposure. If you want more defense and safer playstyle, you can pick the Golem node and allocate Golem nodes on your skill tree, and then use Chaos Golem, Stone Golem, and Lightning Golem. The Golems will just carry you. They will taunt the enemies and you're much safer. In Act 5, nothing new. In Act 6, you can access all gems from the vendor. And then you will get Determination and to replace Wrath. And to support high level of determination, you will need to grab strength from your gear and skill tree. And also you will get shield charge or leap slam depending on your weapon type, linked with faster attack. And then you will reach next level traveling speed with it, combined with frost blink. Optionally, you can drop Orb of Storm setup to free more sockets, as it now only has around 30% DPS of Lightning Tendrils. And from now on, you can use this setup until you finish your campaign. One more note for mana sustain. So the mana regen you get from Clarity and from Alira, and also the Life Mastery node skill cost life instead of 30% of mana, should fully sustain your mana without mana flask. If not, grab mana regen and mana mastery on your skill tree. For the skill tree progression, I have a POB for skill tree pathing in different phases. It also included the gem setup that we went through just now. So in this POB, you can check all the gem setup for each act in the notes here. And then for the progression, so we have different stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and then early game and mid game. So for stage 1, it is when your level is below 32. So how you progress is that first you will go here and then take this to max your DPS, and then get this, and then all the way to the Elemental Overload to get the free 40% more damage. Because our Lightning Tendril can always crit for the third hit. After that, you get this, and then got the life, and then all the way to the Lightning Caster here. And of course, you can get this one to make sure your Wave of Conviction can always apply lightning exposure. So that's for stage 1. And for stage 2, you just go all the way here and pick up the life node and the cast speed and crit node. And then go here, get life and crit multi. So one important note here is that once you get here, you should drop the Elemental Overload, because from now on, we want to amplify that crit damage. And at this stage, we'll get our first Ascendancy node. So you can either get this one to get more DPS, or you can get this one and get Golems, and choose Golems here. And you can have 3 Golems, as I mentioned. And it's much safer playstyle. So I will just choose here for my personal preference. And then in stage 3, which is under level 63, where you should almost finish the campaign. And the tree is pretty straightforward. You just go all the way here to pick the life and reservation, and also some crit node. And then it's after finish campaign, it's your early game, and this is the tree before you get the Hate Shiver and Cult of the Brotherhood, and you're doing pure lightning damage. So this is the tree. You just grab the life node and elemental damage, same life node, elemental damage, and life node, and some spell suppression, and also spell suppression here. And for the ascendancy, you will get this shape. And then after you get the Call of the Brotherhood and hit Shiver and enter the mid game somehow, this is the mid and end game tree. Where first for the ascendancy node, you will drop the golems and you will take this one for more defense, and you will take this always shock because your lightning damages are converted to cold, so you will need this to apply max shock effect. And for the skill tree, you will get these to get cold and fire damage, and you will need this one, which is the cold exposure on hit. And of course, we should also get fire exposure, but we can get that from our gloves. And then we will get the cluster and also this elegant hubris jewel. So this jewel is insane. I don't think there are many on the market. So you can see it had 80%. It has 80% spell damage here. 1, 2, 3. And also 10% chance to gain frenzy charge on hit. It should be pretty expensive, but you can also get other things you can check, like you can check some website to calculate the best draw you want. But in my opinion, this is definitely great for the 80% damage, but more importantly is this one. Chance to get frenzy charges on hit is much more important than this node. The DPS boost from this node is equal to 2 nodes of spell damage. So this is your mid and end game tree. So back to your leveling. After you finish your campaign, you can follow this tree. And for the gears, the 2 most important upgrades are the unique amulet, Marilyn's fallacy, and the unique belt, Immortal Flesh, which is 2C or 4C item at day 1. As you can see from my last video, with this tree, same in the POB, and pretty trash gear, and 4-link, and with these 2 uniques, it can still do T16 maps. And with this gear, you can start farming currency, and then the next important upgrades are Call of the Brotherhood and Heat Shiver. Once you get that, you will need to respect some part of the skill tree and get your final tree, as I just showed you. Okay, so that's it for this guide. As this is a league starter guide, so I won't go deep into the mid and end game POB, but I will put all these POBs in the description and feel free to check them. They are updated for 3.22. As my final thoughts, this Lightning Tendril build is a decent league starter simply because of its nature of high DPS and low budget needed. I will league start with it and make my bank first, and then I will transition to my second character. I plan to play a coldest Dark Pact, which seems pretty fun. So if it's fun and strong enough, I will also share a video with you guys. So feel free to subscribe and stay tuned.